let's go to the annals of Bitcoin history. I want to talk about the cultural phenomenon of Bitcoin Pizza Day. Now, Bitcoin Pizza Day is the celebration of what's thought to be the first commercial transaction involving Bitcoin. I believe it was in 2010. It involved 10,000 Bitcoin to buy 2 pizzas from a local Papa John's. And it has become sort of a foundational myth of what Bitcoin is all about. It's sort of the thing where everyone is like, oh my goodness, you spent 10,000 Bitcoin to buy 2 pizzas. And at one point, those 10,000 Bitcoin would have been worth north of $60 million. So we all think about this poor sap who ended up using his peer-to-peer electronic cash to do what one would do with cash, buy a pizza. And yet we remark it in the history books as something that is a bit crazy in retrospect. I think it really speaks to like what Bitcoin is all about. And I think it's kind of interesting to watch sort of this cultural phenomenon unfold relating to Bitcoin as an asset rather than Bitcoin as a means of payment. So that might have been a little bit pie in the sky, but you know what? Pizza pie. I punned again. I'm going to toss it straight to Wendy. What do you got?
Okay, so in the white paper, digital cash, like Bitcoin is supposed to be a means of payment. Bitcoin can actually be whatever it is you want to be. If you want to use it as a hedge against inflation, great. If you want to use it to, pass down to your kids later on, great. If you want to use it to actually buy things, great. My stepson, unfortunately, has many, many pieces of computer parts that are worth a lot of money that no longer work because he was using Bitcoin back in 2011 to buy computer parts off of the dark web. And that was a narrative that was a big use case back then. But now as times have changed, we're starting to use it in a different manner. So was this person wrong for buying pizza with their Bitcoin? No, because who really thought that Bitcoin was going to take off the way it was? Also, too, I feel like it kind of relates to what all the drama that we're seeing with Bitcoin ordinals and with BRC20 tokens. Bitcoin it's open source. It can be used however you want to use it. And the cool thing about that is it forces people within the Bitcoin ecosystem to continue to build and to do really cool things to help with the scalability issue and the slowness of the network. So I think that this is a cool historical thing. I don't think that this guy did anything wrong by spending his Bitcoin because, again, digital cash. Zach.
Digital
no
cash.
one said he did anything wrong.
I didn't say he did anything wrong.
I mean,
to his credit, Laszlo is very philosophical and thoughtful on this point. We've spoken to him a number of times over the years. But it does feel like if Bitcoin is a religion, and this is one of the high holy days of Bitcoin, the message is certainly don't spend Bitcoin, which I think is a perversion of the peer-to-peer electronic cash stuff, which I think is just kind of crazy. Because what else is there? What other holidays are on the Bitcoin calendar besides Bitcoin Pizza Day? This is a big one. And I think obviously the message is clear to subsequent people. It's like, don't be the fool who spends early. And I think that may be a detriment to the overall health and strength and robustness of the system going forward. But again, I'm just riffing here. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, a few thoughts here. One, this is an interesting story because it sort of is the one verified story of someone having a lot of Bitcoin and deciding to sell it, right? If you go to a conference, you go to a Bitcoin meetup, there's always that one guy in the corner who tells you how he lost about 5,000 Bitcoin in some shady accident. They're always false, but you do have this one verified story. So I think it is sort of like a touching stone for the Bitcoin community. The other thing they've got to bring up here is the mining aspect. The reason that this actually occurred was because Laszlo was one of the first GPU miners. So during Bitcoin's transcendence into use, it started off with just CPUs, like your laptop. Then it went to GPUs and then FPGAs, and then finally Bitcoin ASICs, which is like industrialized what we have today. And during that first part with the CPUs to GPUs, a lot of people started mining Bitcoin really, really quickly and started putting the network into this weird imbalance. Satoshi was unhappy with it because these GPU miners were basically able to mine a lot more Bitcoin than everybody else, a lot more quickly than he thought. And so there's conversations between Laszlo and Satoshi about this Bitcoin that you mined and said, hey, maybe you should give away this Bitcoin because you have a lot of it and we're supposed to distribute all this coin to as many people as possible, increase the decentralization of Bitcoin early on. And that's sort of how this Bitcoin Pizza Day came about, right? The distribution of the money is a really big part of Bitcoin. And that's one part of this whole celebration of Pizza Day. It's not just about selling Bitcoin, it's also about giving Bitcoin to people. Wendy, throw it up to you.
I like the idea of giving Bitcoin to people. That's one of the tactics that I've used when I was boxing a lot more at the nonprofit. I would give Bitcoin to some of the kids and I would tell them to have their parents come in and, have them set up a an exchange account. And the reason why an exchange account, not a wallet, is because we're talking about a demographic of people that don't necessarily understand the tech. So again, giving people Bitcoin is a great way to get them excited and get them involved. It's actually one of the favorite gifts that I like to give. And yeah, go Bitcoin. Woo.
I had pizza for breakfast today, not because I totally acknowledged that it was Bitcoin Pizza Day, but just because I was lazy. But what a great coincidence.
What topping?
It was just, a classic pepperoni. Super lame. Yeah. Well, I was going to bring up the fact that Laszlo had these conversations with Satoshi. I think he's just become this iconic person that deserves to be celebrated for his early involvement in Bitcoin every day with a pizza today. And I think sure, Zach, it does really bring up this kind of message of hold on to your Bitcoin, don't spend it, because in the long term, it's always going to go up. But I just think it was such an iconic moment to see that Bitcoin, this thing that was created to spend, this thing that was created to bring people outside of the traditional confines, the traditional monetary system, was used, albeit 10,000 of them, that would have $1 billion at one point to buy these pizzas. And so I just love that we talk about it and get to have these conversations every year on this day.
We do. And people from all over the world, from within the Bitcoin community, they gather wherever they are and they celebrate and they look back at how far Bitcoin has come and where it's headed. There's something magical about that. All right, that's it for the show today. Tomorrow is Bitcoin Taco Tuesday. Today was Bitcoin Pizza Day. Monday, see if we can buy some stuff. Tacos, perhaps, with Bitcoin. That'd be kind of cool.